Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon where you're at in the world. And thank you for joining this Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation every Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm very happy to be here today with our guest, Marcelo Saad, who will be leading our live with the theme Spiritism Presenting the Spirit to Science. And before we start, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us, Marcelo. But before I turn it over to you, we're just going to give some brief announcements. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, just some brief announcements. Two U.S. Spiritist Federation programs. The first one, the Initiation into Spiritism virtual course on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This course is meant for those who want to learn or review the basic principles of Spiritism. And the second one is the 25th anniversary of the United States Spiritist Federation that will be celebrated at the 16th U.S. Spiritist Symposium in Houston, Texas on November 5th. Save the date. The theme will be Time for Renewal, Healing, and Regrowth. The symposium is for the whole family. So you can get more information at spiritistsymposium.org, and the registration is open. So we would love to have you and see you there. And one more short announcement before we move on to our presentation is on the screen. You can note there at the bottom, there's a QR code. And if you want to help the USSF produce more publications, promote Spiritism to everyone, you can actually scan the QR code on screen and it'll automatically link and you will be able to send in your donation. So if you have an iPhone, I know you can open up your camera app and just put it right over the screen and it'll lead you directly to a link where you can go ahead and make a donation. We appreciate any donations ahead of time for your assistance with this work that we're doing. So now back to Marcelo. Marcelo, it's so good to have you with us today, together with everyone else who's watching with us live, of course. And I wanted to give you a super warm welcome. And I'm sure you are all eager to hear, as I'm eager to hear from Marcelo. Before he starts to enlighten us in the next hour or so, please just allow me to formally introduce him. Marcelo Saad is MD, Ph.D., physician, board certified in Rehabilitation Medicine and Acupuncture, Doctorate in Rehabilitation Sciences by the Federal University of São Paulo, current director of the Spiritist-Medical Association of São Paulo, coordinator of the research department at the Brazilian Spiritist-Medical Association, co-founder of the Interfaith Coalition on Health and Spirituality. As an independent researcher, he is also engaged in events, organization, scientific publication, editorial collaborations with journals and books, technical lectures, and scholar tasks. His primary interests fields are religiosity in healthcare, anomalous phenomenon of consciousness, and complementary spiritual therapies. Please take this opportunity to send your questions during the presentation using the chat window. And Marcelo Saad has reserved time to address your comments and questions once he concludes his presentation. And Marcelo, please, we want to give you the floor now.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I congratulate you for this series of meetings and talkings, and I'm glad to be here to present this pretentious, bold proposal related to the presentation of the spirit for science from the Spiritism. Spiritism has a lot of tenets that can respond some gaps in the question of the existence of the spirit, and it can contribute for the human knowledge about what is afterlife and what is the human being by itself. I will start this sharing of my PowerPoint saying you the script of this presentation, we will start talking about some anomalous phenomena of consciousness. We will say that science is already crawling toward the concept of the spirit, the spiritist principles that can fill the gaps on the scientific knowledge towards a lay model of the spirit, helped by the spiritist teachings, and I will say some words about an ongoing scientific research I am participating. Let's start talking about some anomalous phenomena of consciousness. And anomalous here means unusual, not related to abnormal, but only unusual. We know that for the last 150 years, scientists are reporting this phenomenon occasionally, but regularly, and publishing it in peer-reviewed scientific journals along the world. And the studies with robust methodology and published in high-impact serious journals have findings that cannot be merely explained by fraud, hallucination, chance, or other scientific faults. And mainly, we will talk about the anomalous information reception, also known as mediumship, the memories of past lives, in a case suggestive of reincarnation, the near-death experiences, and end-of-life experiences. Starting with the concept of the mediumship, anomalous information reception, we have a materialistic perspective to explain findings on studies. And the materialist perspective is related to some probabilistic guesses. The medium would say general phrases that will fit the needs of the proxy. And there is also the phenomenon of cold reading and hot reading. The hot reading is previously searching data on internet, for example, and the cold reading is checking the attitudes and the words used by the proxy to compose some information that makes sense for him or her. But we have some things that materialism cannot explain, such as the verifiable data that cannot be from the access of the medium. A medium could not have access for this data based on the regular senses, and this information is verifiable by the researcher confronted with the talkings of the proxy, the relative of the deceased. And this is a gap in the knowledge related to mediumship. Relating the memories of past lives. The materialistic perspective is very rich in this sense because they claim coincidence of information when some child, in general is a child, reports another life on another place and say details and the verifiable information about his previous name, the family, the place, the work, and the way he or she died. And the materialistic perspective will say that is either coincidence or fantasy. The materialistic perspective will say that the children would have this information from some conventional meaning, such as knowing it in internet, And this secondary gains would motivate the children or the family to state this position. But also, in this case, there are some unexplainable data that the materialistic perspective cannot be satisfactory, and the accurate description of places, people, is verifiable by the researcher, and this is made in a place that has not access to internet, and the children and the family could not have access to it. And this is mainly rising it because some of these children present birthmarks that are related to injuries in the previous persona, and some habits and phobias that all of this are verifiable by the researchers. We have the near-death experiences when a person is near to death in a cardiac arrest, for example. The person can see spiritual figures and the lights and sounds, and sometimes person reports actual facts occurred during his or her resuscitation. The perspective from the materialism is that these are hallucinations, all the scholars' sounds and dialogues, and when a person reports something that happened during the resuscitation, this may be related to a fantasy based on normal things that would happen in each resuscitation. But still, the materialistic perspective leaves some gaps that are unexplainable, such as the verifiable data that are reported by the patient in a situation in which the brain is turned out, is turned off, because of the lack of oxygen. And it would not possible for the patient to register, to record this information. And the memories of these experiences are lucid and vivid, and this is very different from hallucination. And finally, we have the end of life experiences in a person with permanent dementia. This person may have a subit awakening, and in lucid consciousness talk with people, and it happens some hours or days before the death. And also the person that is dying can report the visit of spiritual figures that is deemed as hallucination for the materialistic perspective. However, this paradoxical lucidity, this recovering of cognitive functions in a permanently damaged brain, is not explainable at all by the materialistic perspective, showing that the mind is not a property of the brain, and the vision of some figures that nobody knew his diet is very embarrassing, because nor the patient nor the familiars around him would know this visitant is diet, and further they will confirm that this person died, and the spirit visited the dying person. So all these phenomena raise the question: what happens to consciousness after death? The first hypothesis is there is no persistence of the consciousness. The mind is extinguished with the physical body, and the data received by extrasensory perception would explain the above mentioned phenomena. The medium, for example, could retrieve this information from the mind of other living people in a phenomena of telepathy in the parapsychological view that dismiss the existence of the spirit, or the medium can retrieve it from some universal record, something that is in the cosmos, and somehow the medium could retrieve all this knowledge. Thus, the spirit would be not necessary. However, this vision could hardly explain the paradoxical lucidity, the recovery of cognitive functions in a permanently damaged brain, and don't explain the information known only to the deceased person, and also the birthmarks and other physical phenomena that happens in these cases of memories of past lives. Thus, we have two hypotheses. Two, the persistence of the consciousness after death, and we have the figure of the spirit, the immaterial essence of the human being, the source of the mind that survives bodily death and keeps its individuality. In the same way we know in Spiritism, and also known by many religious and philosophical traditions. However, this hypothesis poses a challenge because all spirit models are related to religions with dogmatic disagreements about what happened to consciousness after death. Related to the spirit freedom, does the spirit stay in a specific place like heaven or hell, or they can contact us? And the reincarnation, does it exist to explain the previous past lives memories or not, etc. All this discussion happens because each religion has its dogmatic framework, and it is not a consensus to present it as a coherent explanation. But the science is now crawling towards the spirit. We live in a very auspicious epoch related to the study of the consciousness beyond the brain, because until some time ago, each speaking about the spirit would be necessarily related to religion. Until some time ago, each thing we know about the spirit would become from the scriptures, like the Bible, and the spirit was created by God, and the destiny of the spirit was the heaven and hell, and all these things, for example, was believed by Isaac Newton, the father of the modern physical, not the contemporary physical, but the modern physics. And if you ask for Isaac Newton, how the spirit is created, how the man was created, what was the destiny of the soul, he would say these propositions. But today we have, from the last 150 years ago, alternative forms to discuss it, where the spirit is not directly related to religion. 150 years ago, we had the creation of the Society for Psychical Research in the United Kingdom. We have the surge of the Spiritism, we have the creation of journals of parapsychology to study it very deeply, and some cases like this one in one colleague of us wrote about all the studies made on the anomalous phenomena of consciousness related to independence of the brain for the consciousness, and he retrieved a lot of information and publications in very reputable journals made with very strong methodologies. Thus, we are now in another epoch where we can talk about the spirit without relating it directly to religion. This is an emerging concept in science, but not with the name of spirit. The researchers will use alternative names for now to describe this condition that we know as the spirit. They will say the brain independence, independent consciousness, the non-local mind, making some assumptions related to the quantum physics, non-ordinary mental expressions, and anomalous phenomena of consciousness, a lot of terms that are related to spirit, but the science will not use this term right now. I'm sorry, let me see. Okay. And what about demonstrating scientifically the spirit using the scientific method? This is improbable because the scientific method has a very structured way from the observation, the hypothesis, the prediction of an experiment, the experiment itself, and the conclusion. And we have here the observation of the phenomenon. We make some hypotheses, we can make some predictions, but when we make the experiment, we are not always successful because the spirit's nature is not compatible with the current research tools we have. The spirits are not responsible to the electromagnetic stimulation and detection, and the spiritual phenomena are unpredictable and irregular, making an experience in laboratory unfeasible. So this would be impossible for now to demonstrate the existence of the spirit through the scientific method. So we just rely on the indirect demonstration of the spirit existence by the phenomena produced. And we have levels of difficulty that are variable according to the nature of the phenomena. For example, for mediumship is very doable because we can assemble some mediums, some relatives that are proxies for the diseased, and we can obtain this information and check and verify it very easily. The memories of past lives in the case suggestive of reincarnation depends on exhaustive field research. We had in past some researchers, Ian Stevenson, and his follower today, Dr. Jim Tucker, but they depend on this going to the place, an exhaustive interview, and checking the information. Is not very feasible, but they do it. And the near death and the end of life experience are a very rare event, and we have not control on how and when they will happen to make um, observations on a controlled way. But having indirect evidences of the existence of the spirit and the actuality of the mediumship can be made in studies like this one. For example, in this publication of 2013, some colleagues here from Brazil studied the work of André Luiz, and they clipped some important functions of the pineal gland that are reported in the books. And at that time, the pineal gland was an unimportant structure for science. Science didn't acknowledge any important function from this gland, and in contradiction with this, the work of André Luiz reported many important functions from the pineal gland. And some years later, the publications of the Chico Xavier writings, the melatonin and its functions were discovered, uh, fulfilling all that observations made by Chico Xavier in the books related to the pineal gland. Thus, the information from the spirit André Luiz was correct, related to um, molecule produced by the pineal gland that was called later melatonin. We can make a scientific modeling about the spirit. We can create a theory, because a model is a descriptive representation of reality. We have here the model of the atom uh, proposed by Bohr. The modeling is the generation of a conceptual diagram. We describe some phenomena, the working, the mechanism of the phenomena, using representations that we can understand through a model. The model are approximations, and they are always refined with time and with new knowledge. Some models are intended to describe hypothetical phenomena. I can make a model that describes the hypothesis of the existence of the spirit, and no predictive model can account for all the variables. Thus, all models are subject to critics and improvements. And a predictive model can lead to error and be, of course, improved. A model is not a representation of the reality, but a form to understand the proposed mechanisms for a phenomenon. And we can make a model of the spirit also. But to create a model of the spirit that is secular and acceptable for science, we have to use this strategy. We first have to put together the few pieces available, such as the phenomena we cited before, and we will guess how would be the missing pieces, since the phenomena are not exhaustive for the explanation. There are missing pieces that we have to guess, and we would idealize how the set would be together, would be presented in a coherent model of the reality. Uh, I lost here. Okay, now. So we enter in the participation of the Spiritism, collaborating to this new reality. We will talk about the Spiritist principle filling the gaps in the scientific knowledge. We know that Kardec made an empirical investigation using the scientific method of his time. The scientific method today is a little different, but Kardec followed all the rigors of the scientific investigation at his time, and his process aimed to obtain reliable information, eliminating any inconsistency. He tested and retested the information and stressed it, checking with different mediums until he had a coherent text. And the Spiritism may be a starting point to present the spirit for science, mainly because of three reasons. In the first one, Spiritism called the attention of dozens of scholars over the past 150 years for its pragmatism and objectivity. Spiritism talks a language that the erudite people and the scholars can understand. Thus, it is a good starting point. Another reason is that Spiritism overcame barriers that separate science, philosophy, and religion, making a starting point for a secular model of the spirit. And Spiritism inspired the creation of associations to explore its civil applications, such as the Spiritist-Medical Association that I represent. Let's check these reasons. We have a lot of erudite figures that was interested by Spiritism in the past 150 years. We have here scientists and intellectuals from the United Kingdom, from France, Germany, and Russia. We have Italian physicists and astronomers, engineers, poets, dramatists, and philosophers that embraced the proposal of the Spiritism. We have also this transcendence of the concepts of science, philosophy, and religion, because before Spiritism, we worked in a multidisciplinary approach where science, philosophy, and religion were three different fields to be investigated, one in focus on the nature, the other in focus of the cognition, and other one in focusing the transcendence. But Spiritism brought another vision, an interdisciplinary approach, saying that all these fields are manifestations from a unique source that can be related with each other, and checking for the natural origin of they in a coherent and continuous vision. This is something Spiritism brought, um, looking for the common origin and the manifestation in different fields, but they still are maintaining a coherence and a linkage between them. And the civil associations in Brazil were founded to explore the interface between Spiritism and practical aspects of living. The first one was the Spiritist Medical Association in 68, And it inspired other societies like the Brazilian Society of Spiritist Magistrates, the Spiritist Psychologists, the Juridic Spiritual Association of Brazil, the Spiritist Military Crusade, like many others also, the Society for Spiritist Philosophers, and etc., showing that the knowledge of the Spiritism can be related and inspire improvements in all civil activities of the society. So, creating a model of how the spirit would be, we can borrow some Spiritist principles and state some phrases that would create this model. And the first concept is the spirit is an individuality, the immaterial essence of the human being, the source of the mind. And in letter B, we see the soul is an incarnated spirit with many of his subtle potentialities blocked, thus receives a different name because it's not a free spirit. An incarnated spirit cannot remember the past lives and contact the spiritual realm. In the letter C, spirits are always around us, constantly exchanging elements with us. These elements are information, are energies, fluids, and many things that are part of our lives. Um, some distinguished people can receive a complete mediumnic message. They are more sensible to this interaction and can act as mediums. After death, the spirit retains its individuality and his knowledge, the knowledge acquired in that life. Yeah? And finally, spirits must go through many incarnations towards perfection. In this model, we can see the phenomena cited before, the mediumship, the near death experience, the end of life experience, and the memories of past lives. All phenomena explained by these characteristics of the spirit through this model based on the Spiritist tenets. So the Spiritism can explain the gaps in the phenomena mentioned, the anomalous information acquisition or mediumship is explained in this form. Although all we have some sensitivity, certain people can interact deeper with the spirits and convey a complete message in the form of a letter. The memories of past lives, the incarnation normally blocks memories of previous lives, as it can must be. We have to have this blockage, but in some specific case, the mind can assess them, and children can talk about these memories that are blocked for us as incarnated spirits. The near death experiences in critical situations, the body soul linkage may be weakened, and the mind could experience the spiritual world. So, this bondage between the spirit and the body in critical situations can be weakened, and we can access things that are around us and makes part of our lives, but we cannot acknowledge it. And the end of life experiences in a devitalized body near to death, the weaker constraints of matter may allow some freedom for the soul and interacting with the spiritual realm. So I say that near-death experiences is an acute condition, and the end-of-life experiences is a chronic condition, but all of them are related to exploration of the soul through the veil of the matter, contacting with the spiritual realm. So let's see the ways to create a model. We must have a fact that a statement after experiment or observation confirmed several times. We have an hypothesis that is a testable database assumption. We have to create an hypothesis that is viable and based on facts to explain the observed phenomena. And we can construct a theory that has explanation of a fact supported by the confirmed hypothesis. Once the hypothesis is solid, I can create a theory. And we have here some facts that are observed, as we told before. The mediumship, the memories of past lives, the near-death experiences, and the end-of-life experience. This is concrete. This is undeniable. We can make the hypothesis that the spirit is an immaterial essence, the source of the mind, that survives death and keeps its individuality and probably reincarnate. As a general hypothesis of what the spirit would be. And the theory is the Spiritism that made this model of the spirit and the interaction of the spirit with the people reincarnated like us. However, to progress towards a lay model of the spirit, we have reinterpreted some concepts of the Spiritism. Normally, we rely on this tripod that Spiritism conceives science, philosophy, and religion. To create a lay model of the spirit, we have to reinterpret the question of religion, not eliminating this concept, but reinterpreting it and stating something like reconnection or other term. Because in Latin, the term religare, from which comes the term religion, means link us again to ourselves, to others, to nature, and to the creative process. If we use the word religion, some people will deny this word a priori and will not be sensitive to the discussion. But if we consider other words that will be universally accepted, we then can bring these people to the dialogue. And the Kardec himself stated that Spiritism is not a religion. Let's check these statements from the book Spiritism Easily Explained. The excerpts I clipped from the whole text. Spiritism is not religion. It has no cults, priests, temples, etc. Spiritism has fundamentals of religions, like the God, the soul, the immortality. And Spiritism questions certain beliefs, the eternal penalties, the existence of the devil, etc. And Spiritism brings back faith by giving rational explanation to dogmas. So at the same time, Kardec say it's not a religion. He still keeps that Spiritism has some fundamentals of religion, and it does not deny the faith, but otherwise it brings back the faith. It reinforces the faith. And in other book, What is Spiritism? Kardec also bring these excerpts that are clipped here. It was the church that proclaimed Spiritism a new religion. Spiritism has the character of science, and its adherents, as it has adherents of all faiths. We are not atheists, but that doesn't mean we are religious. God's name is used because nothing is done without his permission. God's name is used opening reunions and etc. and invocating the good spirits, but this invocation and the use of the name of God is not in a ritualistic religious condition. Thus, we have here a proposal for a coherent model of the spirit that could be presented to science. We have here the phenomena. We have also the interpretations for Spiritism, and here we have a incomplete model. You can see the borders of this model also are incomplete and prone to receive further information, further pieces that we can find. And we can call scientists and theologists for this discussion, uh, just presenting this model of the spirit based on the phenomena existent and some principles of the Spiritism. Adopting this spiritual model is not synonym of accepting all the Spiritism, because it can be too much for some people to discuss God and the universal creation, the ineffable and immaterial nature of the spirit realm, the moral lessons from the Gospels, and the origin and destiny of the spirits, and the life in other worlds. All these questions may be too much for some people, and to discuss the existence of the spirit and how the spirit could be, we can stay only with these tenets of the Spiritism that describe it, allow the creation of a lay model, and make us to attract people that can accept it. Important, we say, for these people that are coming to see this model of the spirit, is to state that Spiritism is not intended to replace the materialist model, but rather complement it. We stay with the conquerors of the physics and chemical, etc., and biology, but we bring an extension of the explanation, bringing a model of the spiritist realm that is unknown from science. Also, the spiritist is not intended to invalidate some religious beliefs, but rather expand them. Of course, we criticize some hard beliefs, such as the existence of the devil and the impossibility of reincarnation. This model will question all these traditions, but it's not an invalidation, it's an expansion of the model. Okay. In this way, some impartial skeptics and the progressive theologians are welcome to an open minded dialogue about the existence of the spirit and how the spirit would be in existing so. Even so, we have to combat the opposition from some people that insist to see the Spiritism as a religion and a dangerous interpretation, such as this book, Spiritism, the Modern Satanism, and where they say the repudiation of one of the truths of Christianity results in the denial of all of them. So, if we deny the paradise, for example, uh, we are destroying the Christianity. To tear the cornerstone out of the arch is to cause the entire building to topple. And in this view, nobody can remove some things of the Christianity with the risk of collapse of all the Christianity. And Christianity must be taken in its entirety, or it must not be. um, so the solution is to separate Spiritism from religion, um, using all the scientific part of the Spiritism to prove the existence of the spirit in a way acceptable for scientists and theologians, and avoiding this debate with fundamentalists that insist that Spiritism is a threat to Christianity. And I will talk briefly about ongoing scientific research that I am involved with. We know that psychographic letters, automatic wrote, have different handwriting, especially in the signatures. And we have here two explanations possible. The materialistic reasoning, in which the medium produces a disguised handwriting on each news session, and the spiritual premise that say each spirit produces a different handwriting when guiding the medium's fist. The materialistic reasoning is the less likely because there are limitations to the ability to disguise the handwriting. And we aim in this research to document whether handwriting parameters of mediumic production are compatible with the spiritualist explanation that the spirit is responsible for this calligraphy. And we follow this hypothesis. The signature will be compatible with the one produced from the deceased still in life. We will compare the signature of a document of this deceased person with the signature produced in the automatic writing. So we will take the channeled signature by the medium. We will take also the original signature that was brought by a proxy and a controlled signature falsified by a forger. And we will submit it to a graphotechnical analysis to check the compatibility of these signatures and state uh, the signature comes from what fist. The expected research is the signature has graphotechnical compatibility with the deceased, so the materialistic reasoning will be almost unrealistic. And even more, if the calligraphy variation exceeds the ability to disguise, because if I try to make a forgery of handwriting, I have neurological limitations to vary the calligraphy, and the writing speed is compatible with natural fluency, denoting the activity is made without the effort of a forgery. So we have this informal preliminary data with the medium I am studying. The writing speed is almost twice the normal average, and the medium performed it for 2 hours and a half. He put medical tape in his fingers to avoid injury to skin. And right in this velocity, you can see here for 2.5 hours. And we have relatives willing to show similarities between signatures. We see here a tattooed signature that a mother made during the first visit to this medium. And she found this signature so close to the signature of the deceased son that she made this tattoo here. And this graphic is from a letter produced in the very day I was visiting the medium. So the medium previously made a signature that resembled the signature of the son. The mother made this tattoo, and in the day I was there, I witnessed the medium made the same signature. This is a final reflection just to finish this reasoning we presented here. Which of these subjects are of scientific interest? The pot of gold in the end of the rainbow, the existence of Santa Claus, and the existence of the spirit. These three statements are interpreted differently. The first one has a wrong premise because the rainbow is a circle because of the Earth's circumference. So it doesn't touch the ground. If the rainbow doesn't touch the ground, we could not have a pot of gold in the end of the rainbow. The existence of Santa Claus is not a matter for a scientific interest because there is no observed fact. Gifts does not no appear mysteriously in homes with children once a year. So there's no fact that justify the hypothesis of Santa Claus. But the spirit has facts observed that we stated before. So these facts allow we to use scientific method to um, to start a scientific investigation. To end my presentation, I state that the Spiritism can be a starting point to discuss how the spirit could be in a non religious model, and this model should be refined in order to be more acceptable to scientists and academics. Once again, I congratulate the organization of this meeting and I thank you for the attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saad. That was amazing. And there are so many questions that we've received. So I don't want to waste any time, and hopefully we can get to all of them. And thank you so much for all of your reflections. So we're going to open up for the comments and questions from the audience, starting with Yasko.
Hmm.
And I can read it. If you'd like, hi, Dr. Saad. Great topic. Scientists of material world are required to remove all the bias, the interference of the authors. In the mediumship research, one is equally concerned to discern between animism and the genuine communication of the spirit. How are scientists dealing with this aspect of mediumship to fulfill the requirement of most peer-reviewed journals? That's a great question.
A good question is this always we will have animism, and always we will have participation of the medium. Um, Always, even in Chico Xavier readings. But the important is to separate if the animism is 1% of the communication or 99% of the communication. In case of this research, I mentioned it, we can eliminate the animism because we will not deal with information, we deal with skill, with ability, with motor performance. Thus, there's no participation of the medium. And we will have to be careful because some psychographies are mechanical and some are semi-mechanical. The psychographies that has the exact signature of the communicant is a mechanical type. The semi-mechanical has a participation of the medium, and the signature cannot be the exact reproduction of the deceased. Thus, we will have to have some method to separate which are signatures that interest to us and study only these ones. In the semi-mechanical process, the medium uh, participates and use his own nervous system and motor programs to help to produce the signature.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Let's go on to our next question. Do you think NDEs are becoming more understood and possibly accepted as truth, especially with things like the American neurosurgeon Dr. Eben Alexander? They're writing a book about it.
Yeah, the near-death experience is a relatively new phenomenon because it surged in the 60s because of the advent of the resuscitation techniques that are relatively recent. So we deal with it um, differently. We deal with the mediumship or memories of past lives that are millennial phenomena. And it coming, the study of the NDA is entering the universities and is conquering the attention of many reputable researchers. And in some time, we will refute all the accusations of illusion and the claims that all of the experience can be explained by the materialistic view related to neurochemistry and coincidence. And we have a book from detractors of the spiritualist view, uh, a large book explaining that all the spiritualist phenomena are myths and explainable by neuroscience. And recently, we have a book produced by a colleague of us here in Brazil that is the science of the afterlife. The science of afterlife. I will take the title, the exact title, but he science of the after. He brings together all these irrefutable observations and establishes that something is something merit further study, and the phenomena are actual and solid, following the criteria, following the scientific criteria.
Wow, that's amazing. We'll have to look for that book. That's absolutely fascinating. Uh,
This is the science of life after death.
Science of Life
Google it,
After Death. I'm going
Science
to
of
Google it.
Life After Death. A book
Wow.
of this year, very scientific and refuting all the other book that is uh, bring science elements to eliminate this spiritual hypothesis.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much for that. On to our next question from Paul. Dr. Saad, is scientific work progressing so much that it will confirm the manifestation of the spirit? I'm thinking of the work of
Sonia
Sonia
Rinaldi.
Rinaldi.
Yeah, Sonia Rinaldi make a great research in transcommunication, the use of instruments like a recorder or television or computer to record manifestation of the spirit. A transcommunication may state that there is something um, abnormal. She can put a recorder in a quiet place, and after hours, she retrieved this recording, and in the middle of the silence, you can hear something like something inaudible, but odd, but strange, but unexpected. So it's another piece for the puzzle, but the experiment itself cannot be solid enough to prove the existence of the spirit. I guess it's another piece of the puzzle. As I said, each model of the spirit will have place for more pieces, and this is maybe one of them.
Wow, excellent. Let's go on to our next question. Are there, oh, that's not the next
Any,
question. Sorry about that, Daniel.
hmm,
The next question is from the U.S. Spirits Federation. One second. There we go.
okay.
Dr. Saad, Americans seem to have a great interest in the occult, but in the medical field, there is still some resistance from clinicians. Have you had any successes with approaching the subject to make it more palatable?
Yes. We are in a amongst a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is a situation where the current scientific model is unable to explain some anomalies, and as these anomalies pile up, the model drifts, and there's a crisis in the model. uh, this opened a discussion of new proposals, and the scientific paradigm is modified, becoming the standard pattern of science. This is what is called a paradigm shift in science. And maybe we are in a position in which anomalies surge, but they are not piled up enough to stress the model, to make a crisis that justify a change. This is my position. The position of my colleague Alexander Moreira Almeida, the writer of the book Science of Life After Death, and his position is that we have enough elements to provocate a crisis in the materialistic model and force a new paradigm shift. until there, we have to respect the paces of the change. We will still have people that prefer to stay in the comfort zone, and we respect it. But we cannot respect the disrespect of the individual values and preferences. If a patient wants to discuss religious things and the questions of faith in the clinical treatment, the physician cannot be insensitive to it and open exceptions and some accommodations related to the demands of the patient. This is a balanced position.
Well said. Our next question comes in from Daniel. Oh, no, sorry, Mufsa. The quote lay model, and that's what you shared on the slide, makes me think of the book Beyond Religion by the Dalai Lama. Do you think this would be a fruitful path for spiritists to explore?
Yes, sure. We have to collect all the information from different spiritual leaders that are progressive and open to the theological dialogue. This is because we have to leave aside some teachings of the Gospels. We have to receive from these teachings the universal values that they contain, and not fall in the trap to say they are the manifestation of the truth. Because if we only deal with the truths of the Gospels, we put out of the discussion three-fourths of the humankind. Okay, this is the importance to be flexible and say the Gospels are a manifestation of the truth, like other texts or sacred scrolls. All they have manifestations of the truth also. Okay, in order not to exclude three-fourths of the humankind. Okay, this is a real lay model, and we include in this the progressist sayings of the Dalai Lama, of the Pope, and all the religious leaders open to a dialogue.
Perfect. We just have one last question because we are coming towards the end, and I'm sorry for those if we weren't able to answer or share all the comments or questions. But you can surely leave your information in the chat, and if Dr. Saad would like to, he can respond. So the final question is, what would you say has been the most challenging aspect of your research into spirituality, and how have you, if at all, overcome it?
Yeah, we have to fight mainly the prejudice and ignorance. And we will use the armory of the science that is solid in research and scientific method. Uh, this is the main challenge, is to fight ignorance and prejudice. Ignorance you can fight with information, and the prejudice maybe we cannot fight back. We may have to wait for a generation to die. The progress sometimes is made from funeral to funeral, and some people we cannot change, but a new generation will grow with new knowledge, with new proposals, and with time we will have a paradigm shift. The name of the game is Patience. Oh, your sound?
So sorry. Yeah, it seems like we live in an immediatist society where we want that instant, like we want it now. But well said, well explained, Dr. Saad, about needing to be patient and giving time to time. So, thank you so much for being with us here today. And thank you to everyone who's watched this live talk and those who have been following our weekly talk series. Just as a reminder, next Saturday, September 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, don't miss our next live with Alvaro Mordecai. He will be discussing reincarnation in ancient times. As we are about to end our live for today, I just would like to remind everyone that, again, our upcoming 16th U.S. Spiritist Symposium on November 5th in Houston, Texas. Make sure to register all of your families so we can spend a full day learning more about Spiritism and sharing our life experiences and our friendship with one another. So let's also celebrate the 25 years of the of the United States Spiritist Federation together. So it'll be a really enjoyable event to see everyone who can make it. Also, don't miss tomorrow, Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, on the next class of the Initiation into Spiritism course. And let us know if you have any questions about it. So before we close, Marcelo, would you like to do the end prayer?
The end prayer, okay.
If you're
Thank you.
comfortable. If not, I can.
Perfect. I will make it. First, I thank you for the opportunity and everyone for watching. And I invite all of you to join us in a chain, in a force and the fluidic environment. We invite for this chain all people in the world or the benefactors that work for the success of our ideals, and may this union grow more and more in order to we see in our time, in our lifetime, a change in direction to the good, to the construction and the positivism. So we thank all the creative forces for this opportunity, and we close this activity giving thanks for the people that precede us and are joining us in this moment. So we've finished this activity. So it be.